Hello and welcome to the most boring man on YouTube. So we've just had the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Some pre-race thoughts. Like me, I thought we had quite an interesting race with the mixed grid positions. But I heard Lewis Hamilton sort of saying, "Oh, I'll get my iPad out and during the race at some point," because he just expected a DRS train. But we actually got some quite good overtakes and some good racing, good key strategy calls as well, which made it quite an interesting race. So to the start, we'll start. So we had the front runners, the front two actually, Charles Leclerc and George Russell. They started on the soft tyres, along with Verstappen and Nick de Vries, really, and everybody else was on the mediums. So I thought that was an interesting call, especially a bit risky from the Mercedes there. I know Ferrari probably, I thought, would have had the pace anyway, and would have been, miles out in front early on. But yeah, that's how it panned out. And the plan was there from the team, really, I'm looking at, was that basically they'll stretch the lead to the medium tyres. They'll be fast enough, and then that should see them through to have enough of a gap to pit early. So when they do pit early, they're not getting stuck behind these guys on the mediums and then sort of getting slowed down and bogged down and sort of ruining their race. So it was quite risky doing that with so many cars on the mediums. But we had the start. It worked out well for the two. We had the little battle going into the first corner. Charles Leclerc got into the inside. George Russell tried to go around the outside. Charles Leclerc said, "See you later, mate. That's not happening." Pushed him, ran him out wide, which you would expect. It was all fair. Russell along the bumps came out second, so I didn't really lose any time in that sense. It was not like he dropped down to third or fourth. So it was a good little start into the race for them two. Further behind them, we had the two McLarens, Norris and Ricciardo. It was a really poor start from Lando Norris. Just got bogged down at the start. Don't know what happened there. I'm sure he'll mention that in comments later. And a good start from Danny Rick, seeing him up to fourth. Same with Alonso and Gasly. So we had a good battle up front there. And then by lap 4, we had Max Verstappen. I mean, by the end of lap 1, he was already into third place. He had an absolute mega start and was just absolutely rapid. Made up a load of spaces, especially with the soft tyres. He got a decent start, stayed out of trouble, and as I say, by lap 3, he was already into third place, hunting down the Mercedes of George Russell, and then Charles Leclerc. It wasn't long, but I think it was about lap 4. Verstappen had already made his way up to the back of George Russell, made the pass, quite an easy pass to be honest, pulled out onto the inside and went. It looked like almost George Russell didn't fight that too hard. I think he knew that wasn't his race, so why waste time? Keep it in a solid race, keep the tyres, and see how it goes. And well, he did keep the tyres actually. And ran quite long. And then we had what was a bit of a, I think this what threw Charles Leclerc off on Ferrari and maybe made it a bit early. We had a virtual safety car out on lap 12. Vettel had an engine issue, stopped out on track. Was double-minded, I thought, thinking, would they call a safety car? And was it too early for anyone to pit? But it was in a good window for the guys on the soft. Charles Leclerc pitted, as you thought was a wise choice, under the virtual safety car. It ended just as he was coming out of the pits, so we didn't get maximum gain out of that. And Max Verstappen and George Russell stayed on for quite a long time, to be honest with you. George Russell, when did he pit? He pitted for the hards quite late on, to be honest with you, lap 20 something. And same with Red Bull and Max. He pitted on lap 25 off them soft. So everyone was expecting a sort of a high deg race, especially on the soft. No one was expecting them to go that long. I mean, they went nearly half race distance on the soft tyres, which was really quite interesting. But yeah, Charles Leclerc pitted, went on to the mediums on lap 12 under the virtual safety car. He was one of the only few that at the front that did. And then he managed to come out ahead of Carlos Sainz at that point, who'd had it absolutely on fire, really. He had a brilliant start, and then was steady Eddie, but I was absolutely flying through the back, and made it up quite a few positions. And then race-wise, we had fairly steady race then. Max was just on another league today. Whatever he'd put on or whatever strategy they'd done, he was going to make it work, and they were fast enough. Charles Leclerc went for a 2-stop race, which was quite interesting because everybody's saying it's just a 1-stop, but I think because he committed so early, he just thought, well, Max is going to pass him, and then it's a goner, so we may as well try to take the risk, go onto the softs and try hunt Max down, but that didn't work. And then I thought we were in for a cracker right at the end because we had a safety car on about lap 48, about 5 laps to go. Danny Ricciardo's car gave up. I'm not sure what the issue was there, but it definitely didn't look like it was the engine. It just sort of stopped on the side of the track. It was apparently stuck in gear, so they couldn't get it off the track quick enough, and they had to wait for a cherry picker to get it up and off the circuit, rather than just rolling it into a gap in the barriers and off the track. And it just took a lot longer. There was some sort of issue with the safety car. Initially, it's picked up a George Russell instead of Max Verstappen, who was a lead driver. And just took for absolutely age, and then we finished under the safety car, which was a bit of a downer, to be honest, because just was hoping that we'd finished and have a blast of about 3 laps at the end. Everyone was on softs, and we were in an absolute epic race. I mean, there was talk of whether they could have just red flagged it when they knew that they had to get a cherry picker out on track and move that car, but they don't tend to do that. The red flag is really for only a serious incident, that they red flag a race. If it's something that's a car just stuck on the side of the track, they won't tend to just do that. If there's debris everywhere and there's a barrier broken, things like that, then yes, they would consider a red flag. That's generally what they've done in the past, and they didn't sort of break away from that. And we had a safety car finish. Some may say what we probably should have seen in Abu Dhabi, but let's not go and look in the past. So going through the teams, Charles Leclerc, obviously he started first, finished second. Just didn't have the pace as of the Red Bulls in race trim, did Ferrari. Unfortunately, just Max, to be honest with you. Perez had quite a good race, but he was starting so far back that he was never really a threat to them. Showed solid pace, he did. But anyway, going back to Leclerc and Ferrari, I think they'll be disappointed they got the pole for the home race and just didn't have enough race pace, which is a bit odd because that's what seemed. Ferrari is fast on a single lap, so we know they've got a quick car, but just can't seem to get it quick on a race. They just seem to be heavy on their tyres. And if they want to go lighter on the tails with heavy downforce, then they're too slow down the straights. So it's trying to find that balance for them at the moment. Good results from Carlos Sainz. He started P18. As I say, he was position 4 by lap 12, not far behind Charles Leclerc. Although Leclerc and the head of him had pitted, but sort of pit stop down. But he pitted all the way on lap 31 from his softs. So he went, mediums he was on, he started on. So went really quite long in the race, and then went on to the softs, and then he was just sort of hoping to try and catch up George Russell. He was about 15-16 seconds behind, closed the gap down, but was never really threatening to change that. And it would have been exciting at the end under the virtual safety car, but that battle never happened. But P4 from P18, a good race and a good result for him. I think he was probably hoping for a bit more, considering how quick he was in the race. And had he not had the safety car in the last 5 laps, even without it causing them to close up and stuff. Would he had enough pace to catch and pass George? It would have been very tight at the end between them two. So good result for Ferrari overall. Yes, second and fourth. I think they'd be happy with that. There was no disastrous pit calls or strategy calls today. I think they did the right thing, probably pitting Leclerc under the safety car just to try and throw something else in the mix. I mean, we were hearing that on the radio for Verstappen that they were expecting to pit Verstappen or do the opposite of Charles. So if Charles stayed out, Max would have pitted and vice versa. So it would have been interesting to see how that strategy would have worked for Red Bull. Would they have then tried to do 1-2? But they were just quick on any tyre. And we're moving on to that. Max Verstappen, race winner, started P7. Everyone sort of said he'd be winning this race. He's just in another league at the moment. Started on the softs, pitted all the way on lap 25, but had the pace. It wasn't even like he was running out of tyres even on the softs after like lap 20, 25. I mean, he still had a gap to Russell, and Charles Leclerc on the fresher tyres wasn't really making much inroads into his lead. Lost about 5 or 6 seconds to him, but you knew that as soon as he came out on the fresher tyres, he was always going to make that one happen. And he did. He came out onto the mediums from the softs on lap 25, and he was right up behind the leaders. He was past George. And then coming up to about 3 seconds behind Charles Leclerc, but then Charles Leclerc went into the pits for his second stop, so we didn't get to see that battle on track. I think Ferrari knew at that stage that they just tried to hope for a mix there. So Max was on the hards, on him for about 5 or 6 laps. By the time he got up to the back of Leclerc, Leclerc pitted for the softs, couldn't make any headway, and he just had an easy ride for him, really. I think he might have been a bit concerned on the restart with the safety car on the softs, everybody on the softs at the end, especially because he would have had no one helping him with the slipstream in front at the restart, so potentially could have been in trouble there, and would we had quite a good battle there, but if buts maybes, he won. As you can see, the blue Red Bull light for all you Red Bull fans that were saying it was all red yesterday, but you know, it's equal opportunities for everyone. Sergio Perez's teammate pitted early on lap 7. I don't know if that was just quite an odd decision to pit him there. I don't think he had an issue, but he went out onto the hards at that stage. He had brake issue at that time. The brakes were on fire. I think they're saying that he had some debris in there. So was on the hards, was running quite back, and then just came into play towards the end there. He was running about P6, and it looked like he was on the hards. Hamilton was chasing him down on softs, and it looked like, you know, he's going to get passed and beat by Norris and Hamilton. But yeah, he got beat by Hamilton in the end. He managed to make it past Norris. He pitted for softs as well at the end after going on to the hards. We knew he was going to get passed by Hamilton, so went on to the softs, came out behind Hamilton and Norris, and then we had the safety car. He was behind Norris at the time of the safety car, but I think McLaren pitted Norris in light of the safety car to try and, you know, stay on fresh softs and stay ahead. So I don't know if he lost a place there under the safety car there, pitting there, Norris. But yeah, good result, good recovery from Sergio Perez there. He started 13th, 14th place and up to 6th. So quite a good race for him. I don't think he did a good job as Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, who obviously got to 4th, but he just seemed to be a steady race for him, Perez. He just didn't do anything magnificent, but he was always on a decent pace. I think Sainz had a better race than him on that one. Going to Mercedes next, George Russell. What can you say? Mr. Consistency pulled it out again. Quite a good race from him. He stayed out under the virtual safety car where I thought he might have pitted at that stage to try and save on the cheap pit stop, but decided to go against it. Took the soft tyres really quite late again. He pitted for hards, and then a solid finish for him in the podium on P3. It would have been interesting at the end with him and Sainz, but we never got to see that battle. But what I was saying actually was kind of what he's hoping for. He started second, finished third, but I mean, he was always going to lose out to Red Bull and Ferrari. Mercedes just not fast enough at the moment, especially on a power track like this. I didn't think they'd have enough to keep out, but a solid result for him. And Lewis Hamilton, well, I don't think he needed an iPad. It was a more exciting race than probably he imagined. Some really good overtakes, some good battles with Alonso as well at one point. Really good move to pass him. Made his way, stayed out very, very long on his mediums, and he did the medium soft strategy. He was on the softs at the end and then was hunting down in front of him. But a good result for him. I don't think it's something he would have expected, especially starting so low down, to come back and finish fifth, just a place or a couple of places behind George Russell. And it would have been interesting to see that fight again with him at the end. But P6 or P5, a really good finish and some good points for him. And then moving on to McLaren, they had a really good weekend this weekend. They were back on it really quick. Lando Norris again had a really poor start, dropped back quite a few positions. He pitted on lap 36 in fourth place. He had a slow stop, which really cost him actually, because he came out on the softs, and then because of that slow stop, he got caught out coming out of the pits. Hamilton passed him as he was trying to warm his tyres up, and he got just a bit caught with the traffic. Had he not had that, he would have come out a bit ahead of Hamilton, and we might have had a battle with Hamilton and Norris, but that didn't quite happen. A bit of a shame for him. Danny Ricciardo was doing quite a good race, and then unfortunately car issues and went out. He brought out the safety car at the end on lap 48, 49, and then we didn't really get the race going after that. Alpine, not as strong as race as we've seen before. Alonso was in position 7 at the time, running well, then had car issue, got called in, and they had to retire that car. Ocon started in well far down, and he couldn't get into the poles. He just had a steady race, wasn't really in there, to be honest. Didn't do anything impressive, but a steady race, finished in 11th. But no points for them this weekend, so the good battle for the McLaren in the constructors title there with that. And going on to Williams, well, what can we say about Nick de Vries? On his debut, he got the driver of the day, and well deserved. Got a P9 points finishing on his debut. He outshone Latifi all weekend. He beat him in qualifying. He beat him in the race. He showed some good race craft and good racing with Gasly at one point. And was just steady and quick, and that Williams looked lively under him. We've not seen that apart from Albon. Albon's done a good job, to be fair. But Nick de Vries, could he take Latifi's place for next season? He's definitely throwing his hat in the ring. Haas had they had a poor weekend all weekend. This one, they knew that they probably weren't that quick. Mick Schumacher was running up to about a P8 at one point, came in, stopped. Went down to 14. Good race with Latifi at one point. They had a good few passes, managed to get past Latifi, then Latifi overtook him, then repassed him, but finished 12th. Magnussen was just slow. He was been at the back of the race all weekend, finished, even in the race, he was just always at the back. Not sure, he just didn't seem to have any pace. He finished 16th. Alfa Romeo, Bottas seemed to go coming strong at the end on the softs. Good fight with Mick Schumacher at one point. He finished 13. Zhou Guanyu couldn't get past Nick de Vries. He had quite a good battle on, and I thought, is that Zhou Guanyu not showing that he's a hard enough racer or good enough? Because I think he should have really passed Nick de Vries. Or was that just good defence from de Vries? Hard to say, but two rookies battling it out. Came in 10th place, so still got a point, which is a decent result for him. Beat his teammate this weekend, so decent points for him as well. And then AlphaTauri, well, Pierre Gasly started, as we know, quite early, far up the field. Was never going to have the pace to keep that position, but he did well throughout the race. Finished in P8. Yuka Tsunoda was pretty much at the back for most of the race. Didn't have a fantastic weekend this weekend. He finished 14th. And it was an absolute race to forget for Aston Martin. 2 DNFs. Vettel had the engine issue early on, which caused the virtual safety car. And then Stroll had to retire his car. They called him over the pits and said, look, can't carry on. And so it was a race to forget. All in all, we had quite a good race this weekend at the Italian Grand Prix. Forza Ferrari, Monza, never pulled it off, but, you know, that happens. And, yeah, we're a real shame that we didn't get the race at the end with the virtual safety car not going in. Obviously, a bit of debate now, going back to Abu Dhabi, throwback there. Well, it was a Red Bull leading this time, but with a different race director, so let's not get into that. But yeah, finished under a safety car, which was a bit of a shame. We had enough laps to get just a stranded car on the side of the road out the way. It seemed like they just made a mess of it, and we got a bit of robbed there. But we've got a bit of a break now, 3 weeks, and we're off to Singapore. Obviously, we would have had Russia, but we know what's going on that side of the world, so no race in Russia. So we are going to Singapore, 3 weeks' time. It should be an interesting race. We've not been there for a little while. Tight street circuit. We do tend to get some all right races there, which, even though for a street circuit where you can't overtake, can sometimes be a bit dull. But we do get some interesting races. I don't know what it is about that circuit, but yeah, interesting one there. So yeah, let's see how it pans out. And you'll see me in 3 weeks' time for the Singapore Grand Prix. I'll bring you some updates midweek, this week and next week. Watch out for them. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you in the next video.